Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with Because Bitcoin, and today we are going to be taking a little dive into what I would consider to be, at least potentially, one of the more obvious plays for this up and coming cycle that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. And I want to dive into it. I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and I want to make the case for you guys. We're going to set the stage a bit, talk a little bit of fundamentals, and then get into some TA as well. So I know what you're thinking. You're looking at this going, okay, yeah, Doge, we get it. It's been around since 2014. Big whoop. But there's been some information that has been put in front of me, and I've spent time critically thinking about it. And I actually think that Doge is potentially set up for its biggest pump yet. Let me list a few things out here, guys. One, it's older than ETH. It's been around longer than ETH. All right. Next, it is largely decentralized. So let's just say decentralized, at least compared to a lot of the new projects out there. And part of that has to do with these next couple points. Three, it is a proof of work that is a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. So Doge actually gets indirectly, it gets its properties from Bitcoin. Number four. Now, hang on, guys. Bear with me. All right. If you've made it this far, I'm going to make a really compelling case. All right. But I want to set the stage. I have to do it. Doge is the Bitcoin of meme coins. And what I mean by that is you don't go into Bitcoin necessarily for 1,000x's, but you go into Bitcoin because you know it's not going to get rugged and go to zero. And you know that eventually you're going to get good returns with it, actually great returns with it. It's largely decentralized and it's the safest, relatively speaking, and it has first mover advantage. So I think that given that, one, I mean, Doge is a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. It's like the grandchild of Bitcoin. And it's also the first meme coin, most decentralized, lowest risk of rugging, like virtually zero, honestly. I think there's a strong case to be made that Doge is sort of like the Bitcoin of meme coins. Let's just put one more point on here. I hear a lot of people talking about this, saying that Doge is hyperinflationary. Actually, Doge is not hyperinflationary. So Doge per block, the rewards are like 10,000 Doge per block, which equates to about 5.3, 5.2, 5.3 billion Doge, basically an increase in the additional supply or the overall circulating supply. So an increase about, let's just say 5 billion, roughly an increase of 5 billion Doge per year at that rate. And I did the math, and based on the current circulating supply, that's about 3.25, 3.5% inflation rate, which isn't great, but it's not that bad, and actually every single year decreases, right? Because that principal base number gets increased by 5 billion each year. So if there's an additional 5 billion Doge being pushed into circulation through minor block rewards every single year, then you just take 5 billion and divide it by how many's in the circulating supply, and every single year that inflation rate's going to drop. So it's not hyperinflationary. Before we really dive into it, no, this theory does not have to do with Elon Musk. I might mention him because I think it could potentially act as an additional tailwind if the stars align perfectly, but it is not dependent on Elon Musk just tweeting out his support of Doge. Not at all. I want to talk about something that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. There are now coins and there are now NFTs being built on the Doge chain. And I think a lot of you have probably heard of ordinals for Bitcoin, where yes, there's BRC20 tokens and inscriptions and ordinals, and there's Bitcoin NFTs now. And it's like they're trying to make Bitcoin kind of have similar functionality to ETH, or maybe they're just having fun with it. But either way, that's a new, functionality that Bitcoin has. Um, I'm not I'm not opposed to it at all, but I'm not quite as convicted that Bitcoin is going to have this crazy, Bitcoin ordinals or Bitcoin NFT run. I think for sure there will be something, but I look at the user base and I think, why, I don't really see a lot of diehard Bitcoiners really wanting to spend their Bitcoin on BRC20 tokens, or some of these goofy, Bitcoin NFT projects that have come out. But what we're seeing right now is actually that same roadmap being drawn up for Doge, where we actually have Doge inscriptions, we have DRC20 tokens, we have Doge NFTs, and we actually have marketplaces surrounding Doge. So right now, the current market cap of Doge is, we'll just say $11 billion. It's just under, but we'll just say it's about $11 billion. Um, let's go and let's look at historicals, right? So this was around the peak of last cycle, at least for Bitcoin, ETH, Binance Coin, Solana. Um, you can see, I mean, things were significantly higher than where they're at right now. But point being is, I want to just take note to specifically like these. All right, the top five, roughly excluding Bitcoin. All right, so last cycle, ETH peaked at roughly, let's just say 500 to 600 billion. So half a trillion, give or take. Binance Coin cracked 100 bill. I'm pretty sure Sol got real close to 100 bill. Cardano pretty close as well. Um, so if we fast forwarded, you'd see these climb up. Most altcoins last cycle, like the top ones, they got to about 100 bill. Let's say 80 to 100 bill. Last cycle, Doge actually went to like 80 bill, and it's not reflected here, but it did go up to about 80 bill. All right. I'm thinking that next cycle, we're going to see like the top. Well, I mean, next cycle, like the one that I think we're probably entering the early stages of right now. Um, but I think that next cycle, that bar is going to be moved from maybe 100 bill, where you see the top few projects really start cooking, and reach 80 to 100 bill. I think that's probably going to be at least doubled. So you're going to see your top projects, which actually may be some of these. It may be still be Solana, you know, it may be XRP, Cardano, Binance Coin. I have no idea, or something new that we haven't heard of yet. Um, but anyways, I think you're probably going to see a lot of these coins, at least 2, 3, 4x from their previous all-time high. So let's just use Solana. Solana's a hot name. I think it's possible you see Solana at a quarter bill minimum. I would say probably closer to 300 or 400 billion potentially. There's been a lot of comparisons drawn between Solana and Ethereum. So I'm looking at this right now and I'm thinking, okay, they're taking a coin, Doge, that has been around basically longer than everything else up here. Like literally even Ethereum. It's been around longer than Ethereum. It's got an 11 billion market cap. Okay. It's got an 11 billion market cap. And I think that the next batch of top performing altcoins will probably reach, let's just say 250 billion to 350 billion. And then Bitcoin will go on into the multiple of trillions, probably at least 2.5, 3 trillion. But I think you'll probably see, let's just use Solana again, you know, uh, let's just say, 250, 300 billion. Doge, I think, is being slept on as a competitor to a lot of these other projects that I think will reach that 250 billion plus market cap. And the reason for it is, why did Solana last cycle really go nuts? You know, one, people could just ape it and it was very accessible on exchanges. But primarily, if we're being honest about it, it was because of the NFTs. Okay. Solana had a really awesome NFT community that sparked. It wasn't because of how fast it was. I mean, that's all cool. It wasn't because of anything. I mean, yeah, we had like, Sam interested. It was a VC coin. Um, but ultimately, like the real use case of Solana wasn't like DeFi or any applications like that. It was the NFTs. The NFTs on Sol were kick ass last cycle. Um, yeah, and they're building out some other stuff too. I don't mean to diminish it. I'm very bullish on Solana, but um, where I'm going with this is I actually think that people are sleeping on Doge as a competitor to not only some of these existing projects, but potentially a lot of these new projects. And given the familiarity that people have with it and the confidence in it, that one, it's been around for a long time, it's decentralized, it's not going to rug, it's the grandchild of Bitcoin. Um, I actually think that it's possible Dogecoin reaches those heights as well. That 250 to 350 billion market cap, which from here, I mean, you're talking about a 25 to 35x potentially. And let me get into that. So there's a couple things. I mean, these are in the very, very early stages of its existence. This is like, again, like I mentioned, inning one of inning one. It's difficult to use. You connect a wallet. I'm not going to log in here, but it looks like a MetaMask. It's your own browser wallet. And you can connect to Doge Labs or drc20.org, and you can actually browse and buy NFTs, and you can also buy coins on the Doge network, right? Like, how crazy is that? So, for example, here's a bunch of NFTs you can buy. So right now you can buy this one for 6,375 Doge, this one for 6,400, whatever, And anyways, you get to own these. Like, it's just like Solana NFTs or ETH NFTs or Bitcoin ordinals. And you're seeing a lot of, similar projects and things like that. And there's also DRC20 coins. So they have this one. I actually own a little bit of this one. And it's a little bit more difficult to buy, right? It's not like you're just going on to Jupiter or Uniswap or something like that, and just quickly swapping. It's actually pretty quick. It's not so slow, I guess. Could be quicker. Maybe they'll work on that. But it's definitely clunky. It's more like buying an NFT, but you can actually buy coins in the Doge ecosystem, and this is brand new. Yeah, I mean, I actually own some of this one too, which is up a bunch. I mean, just little bits and pieces. I had some friends get me involved, and there's also one called Doggy Marketplace, or maybe it's Doji Marketplace. I don't know, but one that our community here, because Bitcoin's been really into, is the Franc Cartel. Man, we own a lot of Francs. Great community, very bullish on these. Some of the top holders are actually in our community, but again, same here. You can browse coins, actually buy NFTs. Look, we own some of these as well. But yeah, it's just crazy that now there's a whole ecosystem that's somewhat familiar now, a decade after inception, being introduced into this project, into Doge. So anyways, let's hop back over. I think I've painted the picture long enough, but I want to show you guys some TA. Now, if you stuck around this long in the video, we're 15 minutes in. This is where the real alpha comes in. You guys know that where I really shine is TA. That's where I spend most of my time, is diving into the charts, looking for patterns, hidden alpha, things that people are missing. And I think I can say that I found some very interesting things that I'd like to share with you guys. So let's hide these. Let's for the sake of time, we're going to start with this. All right. Now, if you're watching this long, congrats. You've made it this far. Let me see if I can get this to fit on the screen here. Hang on a second. I got to just stretch it out a little bit. Okay. A lot of information to fit onto the screen, but that's fine. So one thing that I've noticed, and this is on the 2-week chart just so I can show you, but if I go down to the daily, just take my word for it, it lines up perfectly. But basically from cycle top, so the first cycle peak right over here in January of 2014 to the next cycle peak in basically April, May, June of 2017, it was 1,232 days. If you guys can see that. 1,232 days. And actually, if you go down to the daily, it's 1,219. And that's the pattern, right? It's 1,219. Actually, we'll just do it on the daily so you guys can see it. Then from the next cycle peak, which occurred, this was kind of like a little double top. The next cycle peak, the second one that occurred in January of 2018, until the most recent one that we had in May of 2021, again, it was 1,219 days. What a coincidence. What are the odds that two cycle tops are precisely 1,219 days apart? It's unbelievable. That is absolutely unbelievable. So if we extrapolate this out, where would 1,219 days take us now? That would take us potentially out into September of this year. So right now it's January 23rd. So maybe 8 or 9 months. Basically, a new all-time high for Doge coming as soon as the end of this year, 8 or 9 months from now. Will this pattern continue where 1,219 days separates the new all-time high? I'm not sure. I think it's an unbelievable coincidence that these two were, the exact same distance apart from each other. But let me add something else into the mix here. So now we're going to throw on Bitcoin at the bottom. All right. We're going to put it in log. Now, Bitcoin was created before Doge, but the previous all time high for Bitcoin was right around here. And a new all time high was made for Bitcoin right here. Okay. Marked out by this black line. Previous all time high now in 2017. It's right here. You can see that when Bitcoin made an all time high, it was right about here. And now the previous all-time high at some people consider the real all-time high 64K and 69K was like a scam one. We'll just kind of draw it across both tops. I'm not here to pick a battle. It was definitely 69K, but who cares? Either way, you can see that the best time to actually buy Doge is right as Bitcoin is starting its bull market. And actually, if you're patient enough, you can wait until it makes a new all-time high, because as soon as Bitcoin makes a new all-time high, Doge goes crazy. Look at the previous two cycles. Bitcoin makes a new all-time high. Doge goes nuts, absolutely nuts, dramatically outperforms Bitcoin after a lot of ranging. And then, I guess 1,219 days later, we make a new all-time high. So, maybe that happens somewhere out in here, so maybe around the halving or just after Bitcoin makes a new all-time high, and then Doge goes literally nuts again, or maybe it happens before. I don't know, but either way, I can tell you, this is accumulation down here, just like right down here, just like right down here. Um, as Bitcoin is now sitting just under 40K, it recently pulled back off of its highs. Um, my assumption is that it will probably correct Bitcoin to the upside wherever it bottoms, go on to pressure the previous all-time high, and Doge will probably start to pump, and hopefully this pattern continues, because I think it will be a pretty lucrative one, and it would certainly be fun to have three all-time highs the exact same distance apart from the previous one. I know that would certainly be fun, but let's pull up some other charts now. I've got a couple more saved, and actually um, one way that I oftentimes will analyze, where am I potentially targeting, for a new all-time high? If we did go into price discovery, what would I be expecting? Um, so for that, I like to use fibs a lot. All right, so we'll draw these out together. So let's click on fib. We'll take it from all-time high to this low. And what I'm doing here is I've taken, and I'll mark it out with a highlighter here. All right. So from the first high right here, I'll mark it in, we'll mark it in green, make it a little louder. To the low, I took a fib extension tool, and would you look at that? The first peak occurred at the 1.618, almost perfectly. All right, now let's take another fib extension from this high, and I'm gonna kind of exclude COVID just a little bit. All right, just because it was a flash crash. I mean, some people might want me to include it, but I don't know. I like to kind of just use like what I would consider to be the range low. This was a flash crash. So this one wasn't perfect, but it was pretty close. Like Doge went into 74 cents, and the 2.618 is at 83 cents. So we're looking at this right here. And actually, it's very interesting as well how during this cycle from high to low, this high to, I think this is the real low, honestly. Like I'm counting that as a deviation. Um, we'll delete that. From this high to the low fib extension, we actually had a really strong rejection initially at the 1.618 fib extension. And then we actually continued on to almost go to the 2.618. Like it just barely got front ran. All right. So again, here's the two cycles. Now, What am I looking at right now? Let's just do this again. All right. So from the high to the low, and maybe we want to consider the low here, and actually this was a deviation. I'd be willing to concede that. Like this clearly seems like the range low to me right here. A lot more clean interaction. Really kind of feels like a concrete wall has been set around 5.7 cents. Spent a lot of time there. So, anyways, looking at this right now, the big question is, right, like, where do we go from here? Well, I think what we can do is, we'll go back to what I talked about earlier on the stream. If I can get my highlighter tool to work here. So we'll mark out this high and we'll mark out this low. And let's just maybe assume we go to, 3.6. All right. So from here, that would be roughly, we're going to take a percentage move. Let's just assume we're not going to go lower. I don't know if we will or we won't. Um, but from here, that would be about 4,700% if we went to the 1.618, which again, in the previous two cycles we did. And then this one we actually continued higher, which is interesting. But at this point, I don't really see Doge going to $47. I mean, I guess anything is possible, but um, let's just assume we hit the golden pocket extension here, 1.618. So 4,700% is what, like a 46x or something like that. Um, yeah, and then if we want to be a little bit more conservative, I see a lot of people, they do their extensions from the bodies rather than the wicks. So that would potentially bring us down here to you know, uh, 3,000%. So actually, we'll just draw both and kind of view it as a range, right? So we'll take one fib extension from the lows and the highs, and the other one we'll do from the bodies. So we'll even include the deviation, just to be fair. So somewhere between 3,000%. All right, and then if we went even higher, I guess maybe 5,000%, which would be between a 30x and a 50x. Now, and we look, if we go back and we pull up our browser and we look at the historical snapshot and we say, all right, what did we identify before? A lot of these coins, Binance coins, Solana, Cardano, XRP, they all made it to about 100 billion, 80 to 100 billion. And my intuition is telling me that this cycle, we're going to see a lot of these coins and then other coins go on to not only reach 80 to 100 billion, but probably go on to 250 to even 350 billion. Some of them more, some of them more. So right now, if we look at Doge, it's at about 11 billion market cap, give or take. It's bouncing around. So if we look back at our trading view, we identified that, if we did the same thing in 1,219 days from the previous all-time high, we made a new all-time high. And perhaps it's off the back of, this catalyst, this new fundamental reason to actually hold Doge beyond just speculating on it or gambling, or I guess supporting the community, um, being NFTs and maybe applications and new tokens, a whole new ecosystem being born in year 10, which is interesting. Most projects like to do that day one, but now this is an existing project that's trusted and has been around and everyone's familiar with it, which is the grandchild of Bitcoin. It's kind of funny I keep saying that. But I look at all of that and say, okay, if we manage, the stars align and we manage to go to 3,000% to 5,000%, which is that sort of range, that golden pocket extension range, 1.618 extension of the previous cycle. That would be between a 30 and a 50x. So where would that put Doge's market cap? So 11 billion times 30. I mean, you do the math, right? Like we're right in that wheelhouse. We're at 300 bill, give or take. 50x, sounds pretty wild, I suppose, from here. But that'd be 500 bill from here roughly, or half a trillion. So again, it depends how crazy this next cycle gets and how much liquidity enters this space. But It always seems like a crazy target to strive for or to reach, and then it happens. And once that ceiling gets broken, um, it opens the door. And I mean, last cycle we saw ETH between 500 and 600 bill. Um, it's certainly possible. Bitcoin was over a trillion. And I think this cycle, Bitcoin will go to multiple trillions. ETH will definitely crack a trillion, in my opinion. Probably like even 1.5 or 2 trillion. You'll probably see Solana 250 to 350, maybe even 400 or 500 bill. BNB, same thing. A lot of these new projects, who knows? Why can't Doge be up there? We now have an ecosystem. We now have applications being built. Why can't it? You know? So I think that a lot of people are potentially sleeping on this narrative, because Doge hasn't moved in so long. And there's a whole bunch of other meme coins that, run in the meantime. But I think a lot of people are sleeping on this and they're not paying attention to what's actually happening here. This is an established project with an established cult-like community that has been successfully riding for over a decade now with multiple pumps. And now in year 10, after establishing itself through a gut-wrenching bear market, is basically floored above a 10 billion market cap and is now being provided with an ecosystem, a fundamental reasoning to hold or make a calculated bet on this project. And, let's bring this back up, right? Older than ETH, decentralized, proof of work, fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. Doge is the Bitcoin of memes, and Doge is not hyperinflationary. Again, we identified that it's roughly about a 3% 3% annualized inflation rate, which is definitely not hyperinflationary. It's actually less than the US dollar, far less. So anyways, we'll see if this plays out. 1,219 days roughly to a new all-time high, but I'm very, very interested in this. And I'll tell you this about the Doge community. If there is one community out there that would absolutely ape into the Doge ecosystem when it's a little bit easier to do, a little bit more accessible, it is the Doge community. They will love this. They probably do. For those that actually know about it, they will love it. Now imagine if like a Robinhood, you know, integrates, Doginals or any DRC20 tokens. You're talking about Doge pulling a 30 to 50x, becoming a very, very serious project and competitor. And you're talking about a lot of these, DRC20s and Doge NFTs pulling 10,000 X's. And the reason for that is they're denominated in Doge. So if Doge goes up to $1 or $2 or $3 and the floor price of these NFTs increases 100x, I mean, take Doge's multiple and then multiply that by the multiple increase in the floor, you know? Think about it. Really think about it. So it's so interesting to see this happening in year 10 of a project, that now this is being integrated, and it's the perfect community to really dive into it. Hopefully some of you guys stuck around until the very end. But either way, thanks so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Additionally, check out the first link in the description below where you can sign up for our premium Discord. It's a very awesome experience. We share alpha like this all the time. And also, we are dropping a new product called the BB Terminal right around the Bitcoin halving. It's basically a Bloomberg terminal, but for crypto guys. It's going to have data, analytics, and actually real live trade execution directly into the platform. It's state of the art, very, very cool. And that will be part of your Discord membership as well. So thanks again, guys. Like and subscribe, and see you next time.